All right. So there's a bunch of new stuff. Ever since Trump moved the scheduling from Schedule 1 to Schedule 3 for cannabis, there's been a whole bunch of people who are out who are just very angry about it. Now, let's couple this with some facts. Alcohol sales are down 34% across the market as far as restaurants and stuff like that goes. Gen Z is basically not drinking at all. My generation is really cutting back on drinking. I quit drinking. A bunch of my buddies quit drinking. So the alcohol lobby is very unhappy. They gave millions of dollars to Dan Patrick to kill the Delta 8 and Delta 9 in Texas. It was such a horrible deal, and it was going to make so many people, it was going to bankrupt businesses and do all sorts of terrible things, that they got it passed through the House and Senate. And Abbott was like, are you crazy? We're not doing this. He had to do it twice. Dan Patrick tried to push so hard, he got it twice. He had to get the bill banned twice. They also, when they reopened the government, they snuck in there that all hemp products were banned, and which is like a $38 billion business or something like that. Like, and it could put like 50,000 people out of jobs and stuff like that. So they reset that one. But there's been lots and lots of lies that are coming out. And, I would like to preface this by saying that, cannabis can have some negative side effects, especially for certain people, groups of people. And you shouldn't be smoking and driving. But at the same time, when we're trying to, I always say, well, my job as the doctor is to give you options, and then you make the decision as an adult. The problem is if you're fed with lies, you can't make accurate decisions. It's kind of like the vaccine thing, right? So now that everybody's getting the actual information, like according to McCullough, we're seeing a 60% drop. Like 60% of the parents are not doing the full vaccine schedule because they now know that, one, half of them aren't needed, and two, most of them are toxic. So as real information gets out, people can make real decisions. So that's kind of what this is for. So my favorite lie that I've seen is the scromating. So apparently what they're trying to tell everybody is that if you smoke cannabis, you will throw up so hard you will scream for hours. You're going to be throwing up and screaming for hours if you use cannabis. That's not a thing. Like, the thing I think is hilarious about this is that it's not like cannabis is a new thing. Like, no one had ever heard of it. It's brand new. It's like the 60s and 70s. Like, we've been using cannabis for a long, long time as a people. And people have not been like that should be a known thing. You know what is a known thing? You're going to destroy a bag of Doritos. Like, you're going to get the munchies. Like, that's the thing that, like people are like, you hear about that and you're like, oh yeah, when these people smoke weed or smoke cannabis, they get the munchies. That's a thing. That's real. That's going to happen to a lot of people, which is actually a good thing for cancer patients because a lot of times they need to keep weight on for their health. So it has upsides if you use it properly. But yeah, that's a real thing. Screaming and vomiting for hours is not a thing. Now, if you lace the cannabis with something toxic, okay, maybe in that case, but that's not the cannabis. That's the toxic thing you put with it. The other one that we've been seeing, so Dr. Amen, and I've quoted Dr. Amen's stuff before. I'm not saying he's a bad doctor. I'm just saying he's lying and he's doing this on purpose to trash cannabis. For what reason, I don't know. There's research out and everybody's talking about how if you use cannabis, you will become depressed and it will eat your brain away and all these things. So based off Amen's research, let me break you down real quick what happened. So, and this is again back to my statement of there are certain people who shouldn't be using cannabis. What Dr. Amen did knowingly was he took a bunch of people with psychosis, people with depression, people with psychiatric disorders like that we know are caused by low dopamine to begin with. So that was the pool of people he used. Then he had them use cannabis, and then he showed that they had decreased dopamine function afterwards, and the decreased dopamine function led to lower blood flow. Lower blood flow led to neurologic decay, which is, we've known this for a long time. So what he then said was that anyone who uses cannabis, the cannabis will eat away your gray matter in your brain, and your brain will rot because of lack of oxygen because of the cannabis, which is not what this research showed at all, and it is not true. What happens if you take a group of people, psychiatric patients who have depression, have schizophrenia, have psychosis, have these things, they have a low dopamine production anyway. Now, either they have a low dopamine production or they break the dopamine down faster. So we're talking about COMT issues, MOA issues, so genetic functions. So they're either not making enough dopamine or they break it down too quickly. So here's what happens. When you use cannabis, it releases dopamine. And so if you have a problem where you don't have enough dopamine and then you use a product to increase the flow of dopamine, we call this therapeutic. We're restoring normal levels of the product. So you don't have enough dopamine, use cannabis, restores the normal amount of dopamine, and all of a sudden you're like, man, I feel great. Like my depression's better, my psychosis is better, like all my problems tied to low dopamine are better for a couple hours because I took something that increases the amount of dopamine that's released. So great. And so what ends up happening is the people who have these issues take this product, they feel significantly better, and they're like, oh my gosh, now I feel great. Okay, here's the problem. Two things on that. One, cannabis is not addictive at all. It's not chemically addictive. So what they had to do is they had to make up some new term. So they made up the term cannabis use disorder. And so one of the things they ask is, do you have to use cannabis to feel normal? Well, here's the thing. Anybody with these psychological disorders that have low dopamine, when you take something that increases your dopamine production, you are now normal. So by definition, when those people use cannabis, they then feel normal because they now are normal. Because they have a deficit, they restore the deficit, now they're at normal levels. And so they're like, yeah, it does help you feel normal. Oh, well, then you have a disorder. You have a problem. No, it's therapeutic. Like, oh, I have this pain and I use cannabis, the pain goes away and I feel normal again. My pain level goes back to normal. And they're like, oh, well, you have a cannabis use disorder because you have to use it to feel normal. So that's one thing. But back to the brain thing, if you have somebody who doesn't produce enough and then they take something, they feel better, well, here's the problem. You've now forced out more than they're normally going to do. So when you come back down, you're going to go lower than they were to begin with. And so what happens to these people with psychosis, depression, with all these other things, they're not making enough. They use cannabis, comes up to the right levels. But then if this was their baseline, they come back down and then they dip below where their baseline was. And the reason for this is because they're not producing enough. So if you make it, store it, and then release it, and then all of a sudden you're like, release a lot more, you're still not filling the bucket back up at adequate levels to produce enough dopamine for the future. And so it can create a longer term problem. So these people theoretically shouldn't use cannabis. Just like, there's no one thing that everybody should use except for oxygen. There's no one thing that everybody can use with zero issues and they're all hunky-dory. That's not a thing because everyone's bodies are a little bit different. Now, here's the issue that really pisses me off about this. If you have people who we know that their issue is directly tied to the amount of dopamine they produce and giving them cannabis makes it produce more and feel better, then we know that they have a dopamine issue. What pisses me off about this is that nothing was ever said about how those people can naturally increase their dopamine production, which is testosterone, increase saturated fat, increase amino acids, so basically eat meat, exercise, get in the sun, increase D3, and find purpose. We know for a fact that all of those things radically increase dopamine production, radically decrease depression, anxiety, and schizophrenia, and psychosis, all those other things. However, that's not given because that's not a drug. So what they're doing is like, oh, we got to use all this information to bash on cannabis for whatever reason because they're trying to support any other cause they're trying to do. But they're also not giving these people who have this problem the solution to their problem, which is, I think, irritating as hell. But that's what's going on. So there are a lot of things right now that are still going around about how they're trying to say that cannabis causes psychosis, it causes depression, it causes all of these things. That's not what any of the research that they're even quoting shows. Like there's a guy online yesterday who was like, oh, there's a whole bunch of people who, when they were teenagers, they used cannabis, and later in life they were diagnosed with depression and psychosis and stuff like that. Yeah, I don't doubt that at all. There's a whole lot of people who don't get their psychiatric diagnoses until their 20s and 30s, but they had them when they were 10 and 12 and 13. If you have a genetic reason why your body doesn't produce enough dopamine, it's going to be there since birth. So if you use cannabis when you're 13, 14, 15, and you had a problem since birth, and then you figured out it when you're 20, it wasn't caused by the cannabis. It was caused by genetic function, vaccines, whatever we're going to say, but it was not caused by the cannabis when you were 13 when you already had the problem. So again, there's a whole lot of stuff when people are trying to scare everybody and be like, oh, if you're 13 or 14 and you use cannabis, it's going to do all these horrible things to you. See, we have all this research showing it. That's not what the research shows at all. Now, if you have research of, say, 2,000-3,000, a decent amount of people, 2,000-3,000 people who had no depression, no psychosis, no issues at all, diagnosed, spec scanned, the whole thing, then they use cannabis, then they had the issue, now you've got something we can talk about. However, they've never found that. They've looked for it, obviously, they're looking for it right now, but they haven't found it. So what they did was they lied to everybody, hoping nobody would understand that depression, psychosis, schizophrenia, all those are low dopamine problems to begin with. So if your whole argument is that low dopamine caused low cerebral blood flow, causing gray matter to decay, I'm on board with that. That's really what happens. Now, coming back and being like, well, it was because of the cannabis. That's absurd. That is not what the research is showing, but that's what everybody's saying. So if you've read or you've heard or somebody's told you that it's a proven fact that cannabis causes psychosis or schizophrenia or depression or any of those things, that's a lie. So FYI. And if anyone starts telling you that, they read that, smoking cannabis now makes you scream and vomit for hours, that is also not a thing. So I don't know where these are coming from. A lot of this comes back from like, if you hear cannabis guys talk about reefer madness, they made a movie a long time ago. I don't remember what it was, but they said that cannabis would make you gay. It would make you rape people. It would make you steal things. It would make you do all horrible, terrible things. All of that was a lie. I hate to tell you this, but cannabis isn't going to make you gay or straight. It's not going to make you steal things. It's not going to necessarily make you rape anybody. It's, if you're talking about those things, you're probably talking about alcohol. Because alcohol, like we have this giant amount of research. We don't even have to do the research. Most people who've been in bars or have known people who've gotten drunk know that people get angry, violent, uncoordinated, all sorts of things when they consume alcohol. So again, it's one of those things where there's a lot of lies going on right now. And I think the majority of these things are coming because, people are not drinking alcohol. And a lot of people who are stopping the drinking alcohol are actually moving over to cannabis. So like there's been a lot of people that I know who have gone through and they've literally started using gummies, the strips that we have, something like that, instead of alcohol for a variety of reasons. Because it's funny because like we have a bunch of these, my kids go to this really nice Christian school and like I'm friends with all the moms and all the dads of the kids in my grade, like you always do. And as the moms started, using the strips and stuff, like a lot of them quit drinking wine because they were like, sometimes it was 2 glasses, sometimes it was 3 or somewhere in between where I'd get a little loopy or I'd get a little slurry or like you could smell it on me. But I know every time I take some of your strips, I take this much of your strip, it'll relax me and calm me down. Everything's fine. And I know like I can drive and I don't, my voice doesn't change. I don't get fat. Like all these things are great. So there's a lot of people who are making the transition from alcohol to cannabis because it is by all definitions a significantly lesser damage point than alcohol. Alcohol is way worse for you in every conceivable way than cannabis is. And cannabis has significant medical benefits as well. So that's what's really going on. So when you see all these anti-cannabis things, don't be like, oh, we've done new research and we found out that, it's actually, no, it's all misinformation. It's the vast majority. I don't want to say all of it. I haven't seen all of it. But the vast majority of the stuff I've seen is all lies. It's all wrong. And they're just pushing it for whatever reason. They're trying to push it, but that's kind of where that is. If you guys have heard anything, I want to hear the stuff that you guys have heard, or forward me the clips and stuff that you guys have seen of some of this stuff or the articles, because I think it's hilarious. But anyway, I'm not necessarily saying that everybody should start picking up cannabis, but if you are drinking alcohol, it is a safer transition, and I'll go through that any day you want to. So, but anyway, you guys have a fantastic day. Thanks for your time. Have a great day.